Welcome back. If you're here, this means that you have your MySQL Workbench application up and running and successfully connected into your database. The first thing that we're going to do here, and really what this video is all about, is how we are going to be creating tables so that you can set up your first table, get familiar with the interface, and figure out some of the elements and columns and data types that we need to be aware of when setting up our tables. We're not going to go through all of them. The book will detail more of them, and of course you can go online. It will reference more on like W3 Schools and php.net, but we will go through some of the basics that you are likely to use most often. So here I am in MySQL Workbench. I actually already have my connection open, so you can see I can tab back and forth from the home to my connection. Just a reminder, my VPN connection is still up, and I need to create a table. Well, let's get familiar with a few of the things that are on here. Some of them I'm just going to let you explore and familiarize yourself that way. But the first thing you need to know is down here you're going to see this thing called schemas. Now, schemas are really just, that's your database. And it's been set up for you. You can see down here, I have quite the list, and that's because I have access to everybody's database. You should just see your own. It's great because then you can get in, you can make sure that you're not going to be messing around with anybody else's, because not that I anticipate anybody doing that on purpose, but you know, we're all just learning this. So I'm going to go down, in my case, I'm going to go find my database. And you'll see underneath it, there's a few other elements. And this one, there's tables. That's the one we're going to be spending most of our time in. Views, stored procedures, and functions. And we're really not going to look at stored procedures and functions. That gets into more of the queries and ways of pulling up data. And we're going to be using our PHP to do that. If you look at tables, in my case, I've already created a table, but we're going to walk through how to create one together. And now let's just jump up to the top menu, and you're going to see some of these other little icons. So now that I'm in my database, you're going to see that you can create a new table in the active schema, which means when you have your database selected, you can go ahead and create a new table. So that's what we're going to do. So go ahead and click that. Here's our new table, and it's just simply called New Table at the moment. So the first thing we have to do is give it a name. And the reason I like this application, to be truthful, I usually use one called PHP My Admin, but that one doesn't have some of the capabilities that we needed so that we could all access the database easily. But what I do like about this is it still has a nice visual interface, a graphical interface. It makes it a little bit easier to figure things out. So we're going to create this new table, and we're just going to call this test table. This is really just going to serve as your exercise in the lab. You're going to be working through creating your own full-fledged table with some specific requirements, but this is really just to give you the tour. So I'm just going to call this test table. Then what's down below is we need to create columns, and those columns are what's going to store our data, and each column will hold a different data type. So we need to go in, and where it says click to edit, we need to add a data type. So I'm just going to click on it, and the neat thing is if I click to edit there, down here on this lower portion is where I can fill in information. So I'm going to give this a column name, because the first thing that we usually need to do, and is highly recommended in the vast majority of tables that you create, is to give it an ID. And so that's what we're going to do. And so I'm just going to call this test_ID. One of the things that you're going to read about in your book, and that I'm just going to advise you about now, is that underscores are the only other character allowed when creating column names. And you can use upper and lowercase, but I encourage you to keep it all lowercase. It just makes things a lot easier. So you can see I've called this one test_ID. We need to go in now. I'm just jumping over to this drop down. We need to select a data type. You'll see in this drop down, there's lots of different types. And this is the stuff that the book has a really great table that goes through all of these different data types. For this, because it's an ID, we are just going to select the INT, which stands for integer. So then there's a couple things that we need to do because they're special to IDs. They need to be unique for one thing, and they're going to serve as what is referred to as the primary key. So along with the primary key, we're going to make it unique, and it needs to be what's referred to as not null. If we've left that blank, meaning this field could be null, in this table, then it would not assign it any sort of number. And that's problematic when we're doing these primary keys, because each record in our table needs to be associated with a unique primary key. In other words, we cannot leave it as null. It has to have some sort of value assigned to it. So that's why we checked not null. And the other one that we need is auto increment. And what auto increment does is it will, instead of you having to individually go in and assign each element on your table, can you imagine Amazon having to go in and assign each one of the items that's in their store a primary key and having to remember which number they are in the database? So what this does is we let the computer do that job for us. This is our first column. I'm not going to put any other information in here. You could put some comments. Those are just for you. And once I'm done, I need to click apply. This window is going to pop up and it's going to tell you, and here is the SQL code. We only need to know some of this. We're not going to go into tremendous amount of detail in this because we're only covering MySQL for a couple weeks. It's creating the table in my Isaacson database called test table. And it's creating a column called test ID that it's using an integer. It's not null. It auto increments. It has a unique index and is the primary key. And we're going to click apply. It will apply that and it will tell you that everything is either good or bad. If it's bad, it means you have to close out of this and go back. You can't just simply go back here. You just need to close this window. Everything is good in this case, so I'm just going to hit close. And there it is. So now we need to create another column for our table. So let's think about the book nook and the order summary page and the order form page that you've been working on for the past few labs. So let's kind of continue with that and use some of those elements to create our columns. So this first one, after our ID, I'm going to call this one author. And this will be our author's name. So now we need to go and select our data type. And this one we're going to use one of the other most popular options beside integer is this one called variable characters. In other words, this can be text of pretty much any sort. So whether it's an email address, a long block of text, a short sentence, a short description, whatever the case may be, that is what is there. It does not need a primary key. It can be null. So if we don't know the author's name, this can actually be empty. It does not need to be unique and it's not generated. We should be able to go in and apply this. Now what this is doing up here, I'm just jumping up to the top, is it's saying under our integers that there can be 11 characters. So there's 11 spaces. That's a lot of integers. And then under our variable characters, we're saying that there can only be 45 characters in this. For an author's name, that should be fine, but we can always go in and change these things if we need to. So I'm going to click apply. It's going to go in, it's going to say that we're adding this. I'm going to hit apply. It was successful, so I'm going to close. And now we have the author. So let's go down to this click to edit. And let's add title, which will be the title of our book. Also, variable characters. Also not primary key. It can be null. It's not generated. It's not unique. You're going to start seeing a pattern here. So we're going to hit apply. And now it's going to add this. And it was successful, so we'll close. Okay, so the last one we are going to add in here is our price. So we will just call that price. And we're going to create this one, and we're going to use decimal. Remember I said that with our variable characters that we could change the number of characters that we need. We can do that by simply typing in this spot. Now, there are two spots for the decimals. The first one talks about the maximum number of digits of precision, so basically how far out it can go, and the maximum number here is 65. So I'm just going to put 65. We're going to let it be super precise. And then I'm going to separate it with a comma. The second number is how many spaces past the decimal point you want to go. I'm putting 2 because of course we're doing dollars. So we want this to be, so we don't want the primary key. We want this so it can be null, no unique, no auto increment, and no generated. So once we have all of these things, we can go click apply. So we're going to go in and add this. I'm going to hit apply. So now we have all of the elements that we're going to use in this particular table. We're just going to keep this fairly simple for this exercise. So now we have our ID, we have an author column, we have a title column, and we have a price column. So now we need to actually go in and put in some data. So how on earth do we do that? What we need to do is go over onto this left-hand side, and I'm going to go down to find my database. I'm going to open up tables, the little arrow that's next to it, and I'm going to find the one called test table. Yes, that's the one we're in, but I'm going to go out. You see these little icons. I'm going to find the one that has, it looks like a little table and then it has a lightning bolt on it. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now what this does is it's going to pull it up so that we can actually edit and add items to our table. So we're going to test this out. So this is just to give you, again, more familiarity with what's going on. Here are the columns that we just set up. Here is the result grid, and this is a little piece that you can see. You can add it you can add items one by one. You can look at what the field types are that we just assigned. Query stats, we're not really going to be working with that, so that's not such a big deal. Let's go back up. And the result grid. This is the one I like to work in just because I can see everything as I keep adding items. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to go into author and I'm going to add an author. So I need to double click on this so it opens up. And I do know that under normal circumstances, you'd probably have a first and last name. But there's also some other things that we would probably do. So just for now, we're just going to put the author's full name in here. And I'm just going to open this so we can see it. Then we need to put in a title. So I'm going to double click and double click on price, and we can go ahead and put a price in there, and I don't remember, we'll just make something up. So we'll say it's $7.99. Let's go add another element. So I'm just going to double click on this, and we're going to double click on this one, and let's see, we'll do the Hobbit. We'll make this one also $6.99. All right, so we've added some elements into our table. Now I'm going to go click apply, and that's what's going to finally make them like actually there. So I'm going to hit apply. And again, you're going to see insert into, right? So it's inserting into this table all of these elements. Under the author, the title, and the price, these following values. Gaiman, American God, $7.99, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to click apply. And just like before, it's going to go and execute that script. If it's successful, it'll tell you. If it's not, it'll give you an error message. And it does try to give you some sort of an error message so that you can figure out what is going on. Sometimes they're not always clear. Hopefully, we'll get this figured out. All right, so close. So there they are. And notice, now they say 1, 2, 3. I did not add those numbers. That is under my test ID. They will stay always. So let me just add. Let's go in and add another item. Okay, so we hit our edit button, and now we're going to add some more authors. So let's just add one more here. We'll do Tom Sawyer, and we'll make this one $5.99. Okay, so we've added one more. But what happens if one of these, what if we type something wrong, or what if we don't like it and it's to the point that we can't edit it and we need to get it out of there? So let me go in, and I'm just going to apply this just so I can get this last one in there. What if I need to get rid of a row? So I'm going to go into I'm going to go into the J.R.R. Tolkien row where there's this little arrow. I can actually right click on it, and you can see that there are a bunch of different options. So I can say delete row, so I'm going to delete the row. What I wanted you to see in particular is see how it says now 1, 2, 4. That 3 that was associated with Tolkien, with that particular record, was unique. So that number 3 was unique. So if I get rid of any of these, it's just going to keep going on from there. So if I add another item, let's do this one. N.K. Jemison. And we'll say this one is $9.99. If I apply this, oh, it's because I left my insert up here. That's why it added it, and it's out of order, but it still has its unique number. So that's fine. I can easily do that. That's not a big deal. Okay, so I can easily go into the next one, and I could add yet another author, and that one will become number 6. Let's see, who is another author? Oops, let's spell her name right. Oops. Let's see, we will make this one $7.99. So I'll apply that one, and we'll close. And so you can see it's 6. So it's 1, 2, we lost 3 because we deleted out of there. 4, I inserted this in the wrong place, so it's 5 and 6. But you're seeing they're each keeping their unique numbers. And if we were to keep going down, it's going to keep collecting these numbers. So this is how we create our table. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be having you do in the exercise. In the next video, we're going to look at how do you actually pull this information out using PHP. So thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next video.